In the shadow of two empires, one man's faith and sword would shatter the ancient world. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, commander, legend. How did he lead a desert army to topple Persia's might? And what price did he pay for victory? Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas was born into a world of uncertainty and change. His early years unfolded in the heart of the Arabian Peninsula, a land defined by its harsh deserts, scattered oases, and fiercely independent tribes. The society into which was born was one of deep traditions, but also of constant conflict. Tribal loyalty was everything, and survival often depended on the strength of one's family and the alliances it could forge. Sa'd's family belonged to the Quraysh, one of the most respected and powerful tribes in Mecca. The Quraysh were the custodians of the Kaaba, the sacred sanctuary that drew pilgrims from across Arabia. This position gave them both prestige and influence, but it also brought responsibilities and rivalries. Within the Quraysh, there were many clans, each with its own ambitions and internal politics. Sa'd's family was not among the wealthiest, but they were known for their honor and courage. From a young age, Sa'd was exposed to the realities of tribal life. He learned the importance of loyalty, the value of reputation, and the necessity of strength. The Arabian Peninsula was a place where disputes could quickly turn violent, and where the weak were often at the mercy of the strong. Abi Waqqas was a man of principle, and he tried to instill in his son a sense of justice and responsibility. Sa'd's mother Hamna was known for her wisdom and resilience, qualities that would later shape her son's character. The world around Sa'd was changing. The old ways of the desert were being challenged by new ideas and influences. Trade caravans passed through Mecca, bringing goods and stories from distant lands. The city was a crossroads of commerce and culture, but it was also a place of growing inequality. The gap between the rich and the poor was widening, and many families struggled to make ends meet. Sa'd saw firsthand the hardships faced by those on the margins of society. Religion played a central role in the lives of the people. Of Mecca, the Kaaba was filled with idols representing the many gods worshipped by the tribes of Arabia. Rituals and sacrifices were a regular part of life, and the religious leaders held significant power. But there was also a sense of spiritual restlessness. Some people questioned the old beliefs and searched for a deeper meaning. Sa'd grew up hearing stories of prophets and wise men who had come before, and he wondered about the true nature of faith. As a boy, Sa'd was known for his curiosity and determination. He was quick to learn and eager to prove himself. He spent his days helping his family, tending to animals, and learning the skills needed to survive in the desert. He listened to the stories of the elders, absorbing lessons about honor, bravery, and the importance of keeping one's word. These early experiences would shape his outlook on life and prepare him for the challenges to come. The political landscape of Arabia was unstable. The great empires of Byzantium and Persia loomed on the horizon, but their influence in the interior was limited. The tribes of Arabia were fiercely independent, often fighting among themselves for control of resources and trade routes. Alliances were made and broken with little warning, and the threat of war was never far away. Sa'd witnessed the tensions and rivalries that defined his world, and he learned to navigate the complexities of tribal politics. Family was the foundation of Sa'd's life. He was close to his parents and siblings, and he took pride in his heritage. The values of loyalty, courage, and generosity were instilled in him from an early age. He understood that his actions reflected not only on himself, but on his entire family. This sense of responsibility would become a driving force in his life. As Sa'd grew older, he began to take on more responsibilities. He worked alongside his father, learning the skills of trade and negotiation. He accompanied the family's caravans on journeys across the desert, experiencing the challenges and dangers of travel. These journeys exposed him to new people and ideas, broadening his perspective and deepening his understanding of the world. Despite the hardships, Saad's early life was marked by a sense of hope and possibility. He believed that he could make a difference, that he could rise above the limitations of his circumstances. He was determined to earn the respect of his peers and to build a future for himself and his family. This ambition would drive him to seek out new opportunities and to embrace the changes that were coming to Arabia. The social fabric of Mecca was tightly woven, but it was also fragile. The city's prosperity depended on the annual pilgrimage and the trade that flowed through its markets. Yet beneath the surface, there were tensions and divisions. The powerful clans of the Quraysh often competed for influence and disputes. Over honor or resources could escalate quickly. Saad observed these dynamics closely, learning when to speak and when to remain silent, when to stand firm and when to compromise. Education in Saad's world was informal but essential. He learned from the elders, from the storytellers who recounted the deeds of ancestors, and from the poets whose verses captured the values and struggles of their people. Poetry was more than entertainment. It was a way to preserve history, to inspire courage, and to shame those who broke the code of honor. Saad listened carefully, internalizing the lessons of loyalty, bravery, and the importance of keeping one's word. As he entered adolescence, Saad began to feel the weight of expectation. He was no longer a child, and the time was coming when he would have to prove himself as a man. The rites of passage in Meccan society were demanding. Young men were expected to demonstrate their courage, their skill in battle, and their ability to provide for their families. Saad trained with weapons, learned to ride and hunt, and prepared himself for the challenges that lay ahead. The world outside Mecca was also in flux. The great empires to the north and east were locked in a struggle for dominance, but their wars brought little benefit to the people of Arabia. Instead, the tribes remained largely autonomous, bound together by a shared language and culture, but divided by old rivalries. Saad's generation grew up in the shadow of these conflicts, aware that change was coming, but uncertain what form it would take within his own family. Saad found both support and challenge. His parents encouraged him to be honorable and just, but they also expected him to defend the family's interests. The balance between personal ambition and collective responsibility was delicate. Saad learned to navigate the expectations of his elders while also nurturing his own dreams. He was ambitious, but he understood that true respect had to be earned through action, not just words. Religion remained a constant presence in Saad's life, but it was also a source of questions. The rituals of the Kaaba, the sacrifices to the idols, and the prayers offered by the priests were all familiar. Yet Saad sensed that something was missing. He was drawn to stories of earlier prophets, to the idea that there might be a single true God who watched over all people. These thoughts set him apart from many of his peers, but they also prepared him for the changes that were about to sweep through. Arabia, the arrival of a new message in Mecca, would soon append everything Saad had known. The rise of Islam, with its call to monotheism, justice, and compassion, would challenge the old order and offer new possibilities. Saad's early experiences, his family's struggles, his exposure to hardship, his sense of justice, and his curiosity about faith would all shape his response to this new movement. as the winds of change began to blow through Mecca. Saad stood at a crossroads. He was a young man with much to prove, but also with a deep sense of purpose. The lessons of his childhood, the importance of loyalty, the value of courage, and the search for truth would guide him as he faced the trials and opportunities of a new era. The world he had known was about to be transformed, and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas would soon find himself at the heart of that transformation. His journey from the deserts of Arabia to the battlefields of Persia would be shaped by the values and experiences of his youth. The forging of his character in the fires of hardship and hope would prepare him for the challenges to come. In the years ahead, Saad would become not just a witness to history, but one of its makers, a lion's cub, who would grow to leave his mark on the world. The story of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas' conversion to Islam is one of courage, conviction, and the willingness to stand apart from the crowd. In the early days of Islam, when the message of the Prophet Muhammad was still new and fragile, Sa'd was among the very first to embrace the faith. His decision would change the course of his life and set him on a path of sacrifice, loyalty, and unbreakable bonds. Sa'd's introduction to Islam came through his close friend Abu Bakr, who was already a supporter of the Prophet. The message of Islam was simple, but revolutionary. There is only one God, and Muhammad is his messenger. For Sa'd, who had long questioned the old ways and the worship of idols, the message resonated deeply. He saw in Islam a call to justice, compassion, and truth, values that matched his own sense of right and wrong. Accepting Islam was not an easy choice. The Quraysh, the dominant tribe in Mecca, were fiercely protective of their traditions and the Kaaba, which was central to their religious and economic life. The new faith threatened the old order, and those who joined Muhammad faced suspicion, ridicule, and sometimes violence. Sa'd knew the risks, but he was drawn to the message and the character of the Prophet. Sa'd's conversion was both personal and public. He approached Muhammad in secret, expressing his desire to join the new faith. The Prophet welcomed him warmly, recognizing in Sa'd a sincerity and strength that would be vital to the growing community. Sa'd's acceptance of Islam made him one of the earliest converts, part of a small but determined group that would become the foundation of the Muslim Ummah. The early Muslims faced intense persecution. The leaders of the Quraysh saw Islam as a threat to their power and prestige. They used every means at their disposal to pressure the new believers: social ostracism, economic boycotts, and even physical abuse. Sa'd, like many others, found himself at odds with his own family. His mother, who loved him deeply, was devastated by his decision. She tried to persuade him to abandon Islam, even threatening to starve herself if he did not return to the old ways. Sa'd's response to his mother's pleas was both respectful and resolute. He cared for her and tried to ease her pain, but he would not turn away from his faith. His loyalty to Islam was unshakable, even in the face of personal loss. This episode became a defining moment in Sa'd's life, a test of his commitment, and a symbol of the sacrifices required of the early Muslims. The persecution in Mecca grew worse. The small community of believers was forced to meet in secret, always wary of spies and informers. Sa'd and his companions supported each other, sharing what little they had and encouraging one another to remain steadfast. The Prophet Muhammad became the center of their world, a source of guidance, comfort, and inspiration. Sa'd's relationship with the Prophet deepened during these difficult times. He was known for his loyalty, his willingness to defend the Prophet, and his readiness to act when others hesitated. One of the most famous stories from this period is that of Saad's role in the first act of armed resistance by the Muslims. During a secret gathering, the group was discovered by hostile Meccans. In the chaos that followed, Saad picked up a camel's jawbone and struck one of the attackers, drawing blood. This act is remembered as the first time a Muslim shed blood in defense of the faith. It marked a turning point, showing that the Muslims would not always remain passive in the face of aggression. Saad's courage and loyalty did not go unnoticed. The Prophet Muhammad often praised him, calling him "my uncle," and expressing his trust in Saad's abilities. Saad became part of the inner circle of the Prophet's companions, a group bound together by faith, sacrifice, and shared hardship. These bonds would prove unbreakable, forged in the fires of persecution and strengthened by the challenges to come as the pressure in Mecca increased. The Muslims began to look for a way out. The Prophet encouraged some of his followers to seek refuge in Abyssinia, where a just Christian king offered them protection. Saad remained in Mecca, standing by the Prophet and supporting the community. The years of struggle took their toll, but they also built a sense of unity and purpose among the believers. The situation in Mecca became increasingly dire for the early Muslims. The Quraysh intensified their efforts to stamp out the new faith, using every tool at their disposal. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, along with the other companions, endured insults, threats, and even physical violence. Yet, these hardships only strengthened their resolve. The small band of believers became a family, united by their shared faith and the trials they faced together. Saad's loyalty to the Prophet Muhammad was unwavering. He was known for his readiness to defend the Prophet at any cost. During the most dangerous moments, Saad was often at the Prophet's side, acting as both protector and confidant. The Prophet recognized Saad's courage and sincerity often, singling him out for praise among the companions. This close relationship was a source of pride for Saad and a testament to his character. As the persecution in Mecca reached its peak, the Prophet received a divine command to migrate to Yathrib, later known as Medina. This migration, or hijrah, marked a new chapter in the history of Islam. Saad was among those who made the journey, leaving behind his home, his possessions, and the city of his birth. The decision to migrate was not easy, but Saad's commitment to the faith and to the Prophet was absolute. In Medina, the Muslim community found a new sense of security and purpose. The city welcomed the migrants, and the Prophet established a brotherhood between the newcomers and the local Ansar. Saad quickly adapted to his new environment, building new relationships and helping to lay the foundations of the growing Muslim society. His skills as a negotiator and his experience in Meccan society made him a valuable asset to the community. The challenges did not end with the migration. The Quraysh of Mecca were determined to destroy the new Muslim community in Medina. The threat of war loomed over the city, and the Muslims prepared to defend themselves. Saad was among the first to volunteer for battle, eager to protect the Prophet and the faith he had embraced. His reputation as a skilled archer and a brave warrior grew with each encounter. Saad's role in the early battles of Islam was significant. At the Battle of Badr, he fought with distinction, demonstrating both courage and discipline. The victory at Badr was a turning point for the Muslims, boosting their morale and establishing their presence in Arabia. Saad's contributions were recognized by the Prophet, who continued to place great trust in him. The hardships of war and the sacrifices required of the early Muslims forged a deep sense of loyalty and brotherhood among the companions. Saad's relationship with the Prophet Muhammad became even closer during these years. He was often consulted on important matters and was known for his honesty and wisdom. The Prophet's trust in Saad was so great that he once said this, "Is my uncle, let a man show me his uncle." Saad's loyalty was not limited to the battlefield. He was also known for his generosity and his willingness to help those in need. He shared his resources with the poor and supported the community. In times of hardship, his actions reflected the values of Islam, compassion, justice, and selflessness. The years in Medina were a time of growth and consolidation for the Muslim community. Saad played a key role in this process, helping to establish the foundations of Islamic society. His loyalty to the Prophet and to the faith never wavered, even in the face of new challenges and dangers. As the Prophet's circle of companions grew, Saad remained a trusted and respected member. The bonds forged in the early days of Islam endured, strengthened by shared experiences and mutual respect. Saad's story is a testament to the power of faith, the importance of loyalty, and the enduring strength of brotherhood. By the time the Prophet Muhammad passed away, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas had become one of the most respected figures in the Muslim community. His journey from a curious young man in Mecca to a pillar of the Prophet's circle was marked by sacrifice, courage, and unwavering commitment. The lessons he learned during these formative years would guide him through the trials and triumphs that lay ahead, shaping his destiny as one of Islam's greatest commanders. The years in Medina marked a new phase in Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas' life. The small Muslim community, once persecuted and scattered, was now united under the leadership of the Prophet Muhammad. But this unity came at a price. The threat from the Quraysh and other hostile tribes was ever present, and the Muslims had to be ready to defend themselves at any moment. It was in this crucible of conflict that Saad's skills as a warrior and leader would be tested and refined. The first major test came at the Battle of Badr. The Muslims, outnumbered and poorly equipped, faced a powerful Quraysh army determined to crush them. Saad was among the 313 Muslims who stood on the battlefield that day, knowing that defeat could mean the end of their community. The tension was palpable, but Saad's resolve was unshakable. He was determined to protect the Prophet and the faith he had embraced, no matter the cost. As the battle began, Saad distinguished himself as a skilled archer. His arrows found their mark again and again, and his courage inspired those around him. The Muslims fought with determination, and against all odds, they emerged victorious. The victory at Badr was a turning point, not just for the Muslim community, but for Saad personally. It was a moment of validation, proof that faith and courage could overcome even the greatest obstacles. The aftermath of Badr brought both relief and new challenges. The victory had established the Muslims as a force to be reckoned with, but it also intensified the hostility of their enemies. The Quraysh were humiliated and vowed revenge. Saad and his companions knew that more battles lay ahead, and they prepared themselves for the trials to come. The next major confrontation was the Battle of Uhud. This time, the Muslims faced an even larger Quraysh army. The stakes were higher and the risks greater. Saad once again took his place among the defenders of Medina, his bow ready and his heart steady. The battle was fierce and chaotic. At a critical moment, the Muslim lines were broken, and the Prophet himself was in danger. Saad fought with all his strength to protect the Prophet, using his skills as an archer to hold back the enemy. His actions that day became legendary, and the Prophet praised him for his bravery and loyalty. The defeat at Uhud was a bitter blow. Many Muslims were killed, and the community was left to mourn its losses. Saad felt the weight of grief and responsibility. The emotional cost of war was heavy, and the pain of losing friends and companions was a constant reminder of the price of faith. Yet these hardships only deepened the bonds between the survivors. The brotherhood forged in battle was unbreakable. Built on shared sacrifice and mutual trust, Saad's reputation as a warrior grew with each encounter. He was known not just for his skill with the bow, but for his discipline, his calm under pressure, and his ability to inspire those around him. The Prophet recognized these qualities and began to entrust Saad with greater responsibilities. He was chosen to lead small expeditions, to negotiate with rival tribes, and to represent the Muslim community in delicate situations. Each new challenge was a test, and Saad met them with determination and humility. The battles did not end with Uhud. The Muslims faced threats from all sides: hostile tribes, internal dissent, and the ever-present danger of betrayal. Saad was often at the forefront, leading his companions in defense of their community. He participated in the Battle of the Trench, where the Muslims dug defensive trenches around Medina to repel a massive coalition of enemies. The siege was long and difficult, but Saad's leadership and resilience helped to keep morale high. Throughout these trials, Saad's bond with the other companions grew stronger. They were more than just fellow soldiers. They were brothers in faith, united by a common purpose. The hardships they endured together created a sense of solidarity that could not be broken. Saad's loyalty to the Prophet and to his companions was unwavering, and he was respected for his honesty, his generosity, and his willingness to put the needs of others before his own. The emotional cost of war was never far from Saad's mind. He saw friends fall in battle, families torn apart by loss, and the constant threat of violence hanging over the community. Yet, he also witnessed moments of incredible courage, compassion, and resilience. The experience of war shaped Saad's character, teaching him the value of patience, the importance of justice, and the necessity of mercy. As the Muslim community grew in strength and numbers, Saad's role continued to evolve. He was no longer just a warrior. He was becoming a leader, someone others looked to for guidance and support. The Prophet recognized this transformation and began to prepare Saad for even greater responsibilities. The lessons learned on the battlefield would serve him well in the years to come as he faced new challenges and opportunities beyond the borders of Arabia. As the years passed in Medina, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas' reputation as a military leader continued to grow. He was not only respected for his skill in battle, but also for his wisdom and ability to remain calm under pressure. The Prophet Muhammad increasingly relied on Saad for important missions, both military and diplomatic. Saad's experience in the early battles had taught him the importance of strategy, discipline, and unity, and these qualities became hallmarks of his leadership. One of the most significant moments in Saad's military career came during the Battle of Conquest, also known as the Battle of the Trench. The Muslims, facing a massive coalition of enemy tribes, adopted a defensive strategy by digging a trench around Medina. Saad played a key role in the defense, encouraging the fighters and helping to organize the city's resistance. The siege was long and exhausting, but the Muslims' determination and resourcefulness ultimately forced the enemy to withdraw. Saad's leadership during this crisis further cemented his status as one of the Prophet's most trusted commanders. Beyond the battlefield, Saad's bond with his fellow companions deepened. The shared experiences of hardship, danger, and sacrifice created a sense of brotherhood that was unique to the early Muslim community. Saad was known for his humility and his willingness to support others, whether by sharing his resources or offering advice. He was often sought out by younger companions who admired his courage and sought to learn from his example. The emotional cost of war was a constant presence in Saad's life. He witnessed the loss of close friends and the suffering of families affected by the conflict. The pain of these losses weighed heavily on him, but it also strengthened his resolve to continue fighting for the cause he believed in. That the struggle was not just about victory on the battlefield, but about building a just and compassionate society. The lessons of war, patience, resilience, and mercy became central to his character. As the Muslim community expanded, new challenges emerged. The conquest of Mecca marked a turning point as the Quraysh finally accepted Islam and the old hostilities began to fade. Saad participated in the peaceful entry into Mecca, witnessing the transformation of the city that had once been the center of opposition. The victory was not just a military achievement, but a moment of reconciliation and forgiveness. Saad saw firsthand the power of mercy and the importance of unity in building a strong community. After the Prophet's passing, Saad's role as a leader became even more prominent. The Muslim world was entering a new era with new threats and opportunities on the horizon. Saad's experience, wisdom, and reputation made him a natural choice for leadership roles in the expanding Islamic State. He was appointed to lead military campaigns beyond Arabia, tasked with defending the faith and spreading its message to new lands. The transition from warrior to general was not without its challenges. Saad had to adapt to new environments, unfamiliar enemies, and complex political situations. He relied on the lessons he had learned in Medina, the importance of discipline, the value of consultation, and the need for justice in all dealings. Saad's leadership style was marked by a balance of firmness and compassion, earning him the respect of both his soldiers and the people he encountered. The bonds of brotherhood that had been forged in the early years of Islam continued to support Saad in his new responsibilities. He remained close to many of the Prophet's companions, drawing strength from their shared experiences and mutual trust. The sense of unity and purpose that had defined the early Muslim community became a guiding force in Saad's life. Shaping his decisions and actions as a general, the emotional cost of leadership was real. Saad often reflected on the sacrifices required by war and the burden of responsibility that came with command. He understood that every decision could mean life or death for his men, and he took this responsibility seriously. The memories of fallen friends and the pain of loss were never far from his mind, but they also served as a reminder of the importance of the cause for which he fought. By the time Saad was called upon to lead the Muslim armies into Persia, he had become a seasoned and respected general. His journey from a young archer in the deserts of Arabia to a commander of armies was marked by courage, loyalty, and a deep sense of duty. The battles he had fought, the bonds he had formed, and the lessons he had learned all prepared him for the challenges that lay ahead. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas' story is one of transformation, of a man shaped by faith, tested by war, and forged in the fires of brotherhood. The making of a general was not just about military skill, but about character, compassion, and the willingness to sacrifice for a greater good. These qualities would define Saad's legacy and set the stage for his greatest achievements in the years to come. The years following the Prophet Muhammad's passing were a time of great change and uncertainty for the Muslim community. The unity that had been forged in Medina was now being tested on a much larger stage. The Rashidun Caliphate, under the leadership of Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, was expanding rapidly. The Arabian Peninsula, once divided by tribal rivalries, was now united under a single banner. But with unity came new ambitions, and the eyes of the Caliphate turned toward the great empires that bordered Arabia. To the east lay the Sassanid Empire, a civilization with a history stretching back centuries. The Sassanids were known for their wealth, their powerful armies, and their sophisticated culture. Their capital, Ctesiphon, was a city of palaces, gardens, and learning. But beneath the surface, the empire was in turmoil. Years of war with the Byzantine Empire had drained its resources and weakened its armies. Internal strife, corruption, and a series of weak rulers had left the Sassanids vulnerable. The once mighty empire was now a shadow of its former self, struggling to maintain control over its vast territories. The collapse of the Sassanid Empire did not go unnoticed by the leaders of the Caliphate. Caliph Umar saw an opportunity to spread the message of Islam and to secure the borders of the new state. The idea of confronting the Sassanids was daunting. Their armies were still formidable, and their fortresses were legendary. But Umar believed that the time was right. He called upon his most trusted commanders to prepare for a campaign that would change the course of history. Among those chosen was Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. Sa'd's reputation as a skilled general and a man of integrity made him an obvious choice. For such a critical mission, his experience in the early battles of Islam, his loyalty to the faith, and his ability to inspire his troops set him apart. But the task before him was unlike anything he had faced before. Leading an army into the heart of Persia meant venturing into the unknown, facing an enemy with superior numbers and resources, and risking everything for the sake of a cause. The decision to appoint Saad as commander was not made lightly. Caliph Umar was known for his careful judgment and his insistence on justice and accountability. He called Saad to Medina and spoke to him at length about the responsibilities of leadership. Umar reminded Saad that victory would not come from numbers or weapons, but from faith, discipline, and justice. He urged Saad to treat his soldiers with kindness, to avoid unnecessary bloodshed, and to remember that the true goal was not conquest, but the spread of justice and the message of Islam. Saad accepted the appointment with a mixture of pride and anxiety. He understood the magnitude of the task before him. The Persian Empire was vast and its people proud. The journey would be long and dangerous, and the outcome uncertain. Saad spent days in preparation, gathering intelligence, consulting with his advisors, and organizing his forces. He knew that success would depend not only on military strategy, but on the morale and unity of his army. The call to Persia was met with a mixture of excitement and apprehension among the Muslim soldiers. Many had never traveled beyond Arabia, and the stories they heard about Persia were both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The Sassanids were said to possess war elephants, armored cavalry, and fortresses that could withstand any siege. The land itself was unfamiliar: rivers, mountains, and cities unlike anything the Arabs had seen before. The soldiers looked to Saad for guidance and reassurance, trusting in his experience and his faith. As the army assembled, Saad addressed his troops. He spoke of the importance of their mission, the need for discipline, and the rewards of patience and perseverance. He reminded them that they were not fighting for wealth or glory, but for a higher purpose. The words resonated with the soldiers, many of whom had fought alongside Saad in earlier battles. The sense of brotherhood and shared destiny was strong, and the army set out with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The journey into Persia was arduous. The army crossed deserts and rivers, navigated unfamiliar terrain, and faced the constant threat of ambush. Supplies were scarce, and the soldiers had to rely on their resourcefulness and the support of local allies. Saad maintained strict discipline, ensuring that the army moved as a single unit and that morale remained high. He encouraged his men to support one another, to share what they had, and to remember the values that had brought them together as they advanced deeper into Persian territory. The scale of the challenge became clear. The Sassanid forces were well organized and determined to defend their homeland. Skirmishes and small battles tested the resolve of the Muslim army. Saad relied on his experience and his ability to adapt to changing circumstances. He consulted with his officers, listened to the concerns of his soldiers, and made decisions with care and deliberation. The suspense and anxiety of leading an army into the unknown weighed heavily on Saad. He spent long nights in prayer and reflection, seeking guidance and strength. The responsibility for the lives of his men, the outcome of the campaign, and the future of the Muslim community rested on his shoulders. Saad drew strength from his faith, his memories of the Prophet, and the support of his companions. As the Muslim army pressed further into Persian lands, the scale and complexity of the campaign became more apparent. The Sassanid Empire, though weakened, was still capable of mounting fierce resistance. Persian generals rallied their forces, fortifying key cities, and preparing for a confrontation that would decide the fate of their empire. The local populations were wary of the advancing Arab army, uncertain whether to resist, flee, or seek terms of peace. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas understood that victory would require more than just military strength. He needed to win the trust of his soldiers and the respect of the people they encountered. He emphasized fair treatment of civilians, strict discipline among the troops, and the importance of upholding the principles of justice and mercy. Saad's leadership style was marked by consultation and humility. He regularly gathered his officers to discuss strategy, listened to their advice, and made decisions based on consensus whenever possible. The challenges of supply and communication were constant. The army had to secure food, water, and shelter in unfamiliar territory. Saad established supply lines, negotiated with local tribes, and ensured that the needs of his men were met as best as possible. The soldiers faced fatigue, homesickness, and the ever-present fear of the unknown. Saad worked tirelessly to maintain morale, reminding his men of their purpose and the rewards of perseverance. The suspense of the campaign was heightened by the uncertainty of the enemy's movements. The Sassanid generals were skilled tacticians, capable of launching surprise attacks or retreating to draw the Muslims into difficult terrain. Saad relied on scouts and spies to gather information, adapting his plans as new intelligence arrived. The tension was palpable, and every decision carried significant risks. As the army approached the heartland of the Sassanid Empire, the stakes grew higher. The city of Ctesiphon, the Persian capital, loomed as the ultimate prize. Its capture would signal the collapse of Sassanid power and open the way for the spread of Islam into new territories. But the path to Ctesiphon was fraught with danger. The Persians were determined to defend their capital, and the Muslim army would have to overcome formidable obstacles to achieve victory. Saad's appointment as commander was both an honor and a burden. He felt the weight of expectation from Caliph Umar, the Muslim community, and his own soldiers. The responsibility for the lives of thousands of men, the outcome of the campaign, and the future of the caliphate rested on his shoulders. Saad's faith was his anchor. He prayed for guidance, sought counsel from his companions, and reminded himself of the values that had guided him since his youth. The emotional toll of leadership was significant. Saad often found himself alone with his thoughts, reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this point. He remembered the early days in Mecca, the struggles of the first Muslims, and the lessons he had learned from the Prophet Muhammad. The memory of fallen friends and the sacrifices made along the way fueled his determination to succeed. The anticipation of battle was mixed with anxiety. The soldiers sensed that they were on the brink of a historic confrontation. Some were eager for glory, others fearful of what lay ahead. Saad addressed his troops with honesty and encouragement, acknowledging the risks, but also inspiring confidence. He reminded them that their cause was just, that they fought not for conquest, but for the spread of justice and faith, as the final preparations for battle were made. Saad took time to visit the ranks, speaking with his men, listening to their concerns, and offering words of comfort. He understood that the strength of the army lay not just in numbers or weapons, but in the unity and resolve of its members. The bonds of brotherhood, forged in earlier battles, would be tested once again. The call to Persia was a turning point. In Saad's life and in the history of the Muslim world, the campaign would demand every ounce of his skill, courage, and faith. The outcome was uncertain, and the risks were immense. Yet, Saad faced the gathering storm with determination, trusting in his experience, his companions, and the guidance of his faith. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the map of the region and leave a lasting legacy. Ibn Abi Waqqas, once a young archer in the deserts of Arabia, now stood at the head of an army on the threshold of empire. The suspense and anxiety of leading men into the unknown were real, but so too was the hope that their sacrifices would bring about a new era of justice and peace. The Battle of Qadisiyyah stands as one of the most decisive and dramatic confrontations in early Islamic history. It was not just a clash of armies, but a collision of civilizations, ambitions, and destinies. For Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, it was the ultimate test of leadership, strategy, and faith. For the soldiers on both sides, it was a struggle for survival, honor, and the future of their peoples. The Muslim army, led by Saad, had advanced deep into Persian territory. The Sassanid Empire, though weakened, was determined to defend its heartland. The Persian general, Saad, was a seasoned commander, respected for his tactical brilliance and his ability to inspire his troops. The stage was set near the small town of Qadisiyyah on the edge of the Euphrates River. The landscape was flat and open, with canals and marshes that would play a crucial role in the coming battle.
The days leading up to the battle were filled with tension and uncertainty. Both armies camped within sight of each other, their banners fluttering in the wind. The Persians brought with them war elephants, heavily armored cavalry, and a force that outnumbered the Muslims. The Arabs, though fewer in number, were united by faith and the leadership of Saad. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, fear, and a sense that history was about to be made. Saad, suffering from illness, was unable to lead from the front. He directed the battle from a rooftop, relying on his commanders to carry out his orders. Despite his physical weakness, his mind was sharp, and his presence inspired confidence among his men. He spent the nights in prayer, seeking guidance and strength for the ordeal ahead. The Persians, confident in their numbers and their elephants, prepared for a decisive victory. Rostam addressed his troops, reminding them of their heritage, the glory of the Sassanid Empire, and the need to repel the invaders. The Persian soldiers, many of whom had fought in previous wars, were determined to defend their homeland. Yet, beneath the surface, there was anxiety. The empire was in decline, and the outcome of the battle would determine its fate. The battle began with skirmishes and probing attacks. Both sides tested each other's defenses, looking for weaknesses. The Persians unleashed their elephants, hoping to break the Muslim lines. The sight of the massive beasts, armored and trumpeting, struck fear into the hearts of the Arab soldiers. The elephants charged, scattering the front ranks and causing chaos, but the Muslims adapted quickly. Archers targeted the elephants' eyes and feet, while nimble infantry moved to outflank them. The elephants, wounded and panicked, turned back into the Persian lines, causing confusion and disorder. The fighting intensified as the main forces clashed. The noise of battle was overwhelming. Shouts, the clash of swords, the cries of the wounded, and the thunder of hooves. The air was thick with dust and the smell of sweat and blood. Saad's commanders relayed his orders, adjusting tactics as the situation changed. The Muslims fought with determination, inspired by their faith and the knowledge that the eyes of the entire community were upon them. On the Persian side, Rostam moved among his troops, encouraging them and directing the battle. He was a symbol of resistance, a reminder of the empire's proud history. The Persian soldiers fought bravely, using their superior armor and discipline to hold the line. Many of them were veterans, skilled in the arts of war. Yet, the pressure from the Muslim attacks and the chaos caused by the elephants began to take its toll. The battle raged for days, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The nights were filled with the groans of the wounded and the prayers of the survivors. Both armies suffered heavy losses, and the morale of the soldiers was tested to the limit. Saad continued to direct the battle from his rooftop, sending messages to his commanders and urging them to remain steadfast. Amid the chaos, acts of heroism and sacrifice stood out. Muslim warriors risked their lives to rescue wounded comrades or to break through enemy lines. Persian soldiers fought to the last, refusing to retreat even when the odds were against them. The bonds of brotherhood and loyalty were tested on both sides. As men faced the reality of death and the uncertainty of the future, the turning point came when the Muslims launched a coordinated attack on the Persian center. Saad's strategy was to exploit the confusion caused by the elephants and to target the Persian command structure. A group of Muslim warriors managed to reach Rostam's position, and in the fierce fighting that followed, the Persian general was killed. The news of Rostam's death spread quickly through the Persian ranks, causing panic and disarray. With their leader gone, the Persian army began to collapse. Some units tried to hold their ground, while others fled toward the river. The Muslims pressed their advantage, pursuing the retreating Persians and capturing many prisoners. The battlefield was a scene of devastation, bodies, broken weapons, and the remnants of the once mighty Sassanid force. The aftermath of Qadisiyyah was both triumphant and sobering. The Muslims had achieved a stunning victory, one that would open the gates to the heart of the Persian Empire. The cost, however, was high. Many brave men had fallen on both sides, and the survivors were left to mourn their losses. Saad, though physically exhausted, gave thanks for the victory and ordered that the wounded be cared for, and the dead buried with honor. The victory at Qadisiyyah sent shockwaves through both the Muslim and Persian worlds. For the Muslims, it was a moment of immense pride and gratitude. The odds had been against them, yet their unity, faith, and determination had carried them through. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, though weakened by illness, was celebrated as the architect of the victory. His leadership, strategic thinking, and ability to inspire his commanders had made the difference in a battle where every decision mattered for the Persian survivors. The defeat was devastating. The loss of Rustem Farrokhzad, their most respected general, was a blow from which the Sassanid army would never fully recover. The soldiers who escaped the battlefield carried with them stories of chaos, bravery, and loss. Many returned to their homes with a sense of uncertainty, unsure of what the future would hold for their families and their empire. The defeat at Qadisiyyah marked the beginning of the end for the Sassanid dynasty, which had ruled Persia for centuries. The aftermath of the battle was marked by both compassion and pragmatism. Saad ordered that the wounded, regardless of which side they had fought on, be given medical care. Prisoners were treated with dignity, and efforts were made to reunite families separated by the fighting. The Muslim army, though victorious, did not indulge in wanton destruction or revenge. Instead, Saad emphasized the values of justice and mercy, reminding his soldiers that their mission was not just to conquer, but to set an example of ethical conduct. The human cost of the battle was immense. The fields around Qadisiyyah were littered with the bodies of the fallen. Survivors from both sides wandered among the dead, searching for friends and loved ones. The grief was palpable, and the reality of war's brutality was impossible to ignore. Saad himself was deeply affected by the losses, and he spent time in prayer and reflection, seeking solace and guidance for the challenges that lay ahead. The victory at Qadisiyyah was not just a military triumph. It was a turning point in the history of the region. The road to the Persian capital, Ctesiphon, was now open. The Sassanid Empire, already weakened by years of internal strife and external conflict, was left vulnerable to further advances. The Muslim army, emboldened by their success, prepared to press forward, knowing that the fate of an entire civilization hung in the balance. The battle also had a profound impact on the soldiers who fought in it. For the Arabs, it was a moment of transformation. Many had never before faced such a powerful and sophisticated enemy. The experience of standing firm in the face of war elephants, armored cavalry, and the might of the Sassanid military gave them a new sense of confidence and purpose. The bonds of brotherhood, forged in the heat of battle, became even stronger. For the Persians, the defeat was a moment of reckoning. The loss of Qadisiyyah forced many to confront the reality of their empire's decline. Some chose to resist, retreating to other strongholds and preparing for further battles. Others sought terms with the advancing Muslims, hoping to preserve their lives and their communities. The legacy of the battle would shape Persian society for generations, influencing everything from politics to culture and religion. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas emerged from Qadisiyyah as one of the most respected generals of his time. His ability to adapt to changing circumstances, to inspire his men, and to uphold the values of justice and mercy set him apart. The victory was a testament to his leadership, but also to the resilience and faith of the Muslim army. The lessons learned at Qadisiyyah would guide Saad and his companions as they faced new challenges in the campaigns that followed. The drama of Qadisiyyah did not end with the battle itself. The aftermath brought new dilemmas: how to govern conquered territories, how to integrate diverse populations, and how to maintain the unity and discipline of the army. Saad's approach was marked by pragmatism and a commitment to the principles that had guided him throughout his life. He worked to ensure that the transition of power was as smooth as possible, seeking to win the trust of the local population and to minimize further bloodshed. The story of Qadisiyyah is not just a tale of tactics and heroism. It is a story of human beings caught in the currents of history. On both sides, there were moments of fear, courage, loss, and hope. The battle changed the lives of everyone involved, leaving scars that would last a lifetime. Yet, it also opened the door to new possibilities, setting the stage for the transformation of an entire region in the years that followed. The memory of Qadisiyyah would be invoked by poets, historians, and leaders. It became a symbol of faith, overcoming adversity, of unity, triumphing over division, and of the power of vision and leadership to change the course of history. For Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, it was the defining moment of his career, a testament to his character, his faith, and his place in the story of Islam's rise. After the victory at Qadisiyyah, the road to the heart of the Sassanid Empire lay open. The Muslim army, led by Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, advanced steadily toward Ctesiphon, the legendary capital of Persia. Ctesiphon was not just a city, it was a symbol of centuries of Persian power, culture, and wealth. Its palaces, gardens, and libraries were famous throughout the region. For the soldiers who had marched from the deserts of Arabia, the sight of Ctesiphon rising on the horizon was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. The approach to Ctesiphon was not without challenges. The Sassanid forces, though weakened by their defeat at Qadisiyyah, were not yet finished. They regrouped behind the city's formidable defenses, determined to make a last stand. The city itself was protected by the Tigris River, which served as a natural barrier. Bridges and ferries were destroyed to slow the Muslim advance, and the defenders prepared for a siege. Saad understood the significance of what lay ahead. The capture of Ctesiphon would not only mark the end of Sassanid rule, but would also test the discipline and character of his army. The city's wealth was legendary, and the temptation for plunder was great. Saad knew that victory could easily turn into chaos if his troops lost sight of their principles. He reminded his commanders and soldiers that their mission was not just conquest, but the establishment of justice and the spread of a new order, based on faith and fairness. The siege of Ctesiphon began with careful planning. Saad ordered his forces to encircle the city, cutting off supplies and escape routes. Scouts and engineers worked to find ways across the river, while archers and infantry kept pressure on the defenders. The Sassanid garrison, led by the remnants of the imperial family and loyal generals, put up a determined resistance. Skirmishes broke out along the riverbanks, and both sides suffered losses in the struggle for control. Inside the city, the mood was tense and uncertain. The people of Ctesiphon, accustomed to the grandeur and security of imperial rule, now faced the prospect of defeat and occupation. Some hoped for a negotiated surrender, while others prepared for the worst. The Sassanid leadership was divided, with some urging continued resistance and others seeking a way to escape. The once mighty empire was crumbling from within, and the city's fate hung in the balance. Saad's leadership during the siege was marked by patience and restraint. He resisted calls for a direct assault, knowing that such an attack would lead to unnecessary bloodshed and destruction. Instead, he relied on a strategy of attrition, waiting for the defenders to exhaust their resources and morale. He sent envoys to the city, offering terms of surrender that promised safety for those who laid down their arms and accepted the new order. Some accepted, while others held out, hoping for reinforcements that would never come. The turning point came when Muslim engineers managed to find a way across the Tigris. Using makeshift rafts and boats, they launched a surprise attack on the city's defenses. The defenders, caught off guard and demoralized by weeks of siege, began to falter. Panic spread through the city as news of the breach reached the population. The Sassanid leaders, realizing that all was lost, fled the city under cover of darkness, taking with them what treasures they could carry. The fall of Ctesiphon was both a triumph and a test. The Muslim army entered the city, finding it largely deserted by its rulers, but still filled with the wealth and splendor of centuries. Palaces, storerooms, and treasuries were left behind, offering riches beyond anything the soldiers had ever seen. The temptation for plunder was overwhelming. Some soldiers, overcome by the sight of gold, jewels, and fine goods, began to help themselves to the spoils. Saad faced one of the greatest challenges of his career. He knew that the discipline and reputation of his army were at stake. He issued strict orders against looting and reminded his troops of the principles of justice and restraint. He appointed trusted officers to oversee the distribution of any spoils, ensuring that they were collected and accounted for according to the rules of the caliphate. Saad emphasized that the wealth of Ctesiphon was not a personal reward, but a trust to be managed for the benefit of the community. Maintaining order in the aftermath of the conquest was not easy. The soldiers, many of whom had endured years of hardship and deprivation, struggled to resist the lure of sudden wealth. Saad moved quickly to restore discipline, punishing those who broke the rules and rewarding those who showed restraint. He worked to reassure the city's population, promising protection for those who accepted the new rule and fair treatment for all. The challenge of justice extended beyond the immediate aftermath of the conquest. Saad was now responsible for governing a city that was home to people of many backgrounds: Persians, Arabs, Christians, Jews, and others. He sought to establish a system of administration that respected local customs while introducing the principles of Islamic governance. He appointed officials to oversee the collection of taxes, the maintenance of order, and the resolution of disputes. Saad's goal was to win the trust of the population and to demonstrate that the new rulers were committed to justice and fairness. The days following the fall of Ctesiphon were filled with both relief and uncertainty. For the Muslim soldiers, the conquest was a moment of pride and accomplishment. They had achieved what many thought impossible, overcoming one of the world's greatest empires and capturing its magnificent capital. Yet the reality of victory brought new responsibilities and challenges. The city was vast, its people weren't. Anxious, and the future was uncertain. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas understood that the true test of leadership often comes after the battle is won. He moved quickly to establish order, sending patrols through the streets to prevent unrest and reassure the citizens. He met with community leaders, listened to their concerns, and promised fair treatment for all who accepted the new rule. Saad's approach was firm but just, aiming to balance the needs of his soldiers with the rights of the city's inhabitants. The lure of wealth remained a constant temptation. Ctesiphon's storerooms were filled with treasures, gold, silver, fine fabrics, and precious artifacts. Saad reminded his troops that these riches were not for personal gain, but for the benefit of the entire community. He organized the collection and distribution of spoils according to the rules set by the caliphate, ensuring that shares were allocated fairly and that a portion was sent to Medina for the support of the wider Muslim community. Despite these efforts, not all soldiers were able to resist the temptation. There were incidents of looting and disputes over the division of spoils. Saad responded swiftly, enforcing discipline and making it clear that violations would not be tolerated. He understood that the reputation of the Muslim army and the message of Islam itself depended on the conduct of its soldiers. Justice and restraint were not just ideals, but necessities for the success of the new order. The challenge of governing Ctesiphon extended beyond material wealth. The city was a center of culture, learning, and administration. Saad recognized the importance of preserving its institutions and integrating its people into the new system. He appointed local officials to assist in governance, respected the rights of religious minorities, and encouraged the continuation of trade and scholarship. Saad's goal was to create a sense of stability and continuity, even as the city adjusted. To new rulers, the emotional impact of the conquest was profound. For many Persians, the fall of Ctesiphon marked the end of an era. The city's palaces, once filled with the sounds of music and celebration, were now quiet. Families mourned the loss of loved ones, and uncertainty hung over the future. Some residents chose to leave, seeking refuge in other parts of the empire. Others stayed, hoping to find a place in the new order. For the Muslim soldiers, the experience was equally complex. The pride of victory was tempered by the memory of fallen comrades and the realization that their journey was not yet over. Saad encouraged his men to remain humble, to remember the values that had brought them this far, and to prepare for the challenges ahead. The conquest of Ctesiphon was a milestone, but it was also a beginning, a step toward the creation of a new society based on justice, faith, and unity. Saad's struggle to maintain justice and order was ongoing. He faced pressure from both his own troops and the local population. There were disputes to resolve, grievances to address, and the constant need to balance competing interests. Saad relied on his experience, his faith, and the support of trusted advisors. He sought guidance through prayer and reflection, always. Mindful of the responsibility he carried, the legacy of the conquest of Ctesiphon would endure for generations. the city became a symbol of the transformation sweeping across the region. A place where old and new met, where cultures blended, and where the ideals of justice and mercy were put to the test. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas' leadership during this critical period set a standard for those who would follow, demonstrating that true victory lies not just in conquest, but in the ability to govern with wisdom, compassion, and integrity. As the dust settled and life in Ctesiphon began to return to a new normal, Saad looked to the future. The challenges of maintaining order, integrating diverse communities, and upholding the principles of justice would continue. But the experience of the siege and the fall of the Persian capital had shown that with faith, discipline, and a commitment to higher ideals, even the greatest obstacles could be overcome. With the conquest of Ctesiphon and the collapse of Sassanid power, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas found himself not just a general, but a governor and administrator of vast new territories. The Muslim state was expanding rapidly, and the need for effective governance was greater than ever. Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, recognizing Sa'd's leadership and integrity, appointed him as the governor of Kufa and the surrounding Persian lands. This new role brought with it immense responsibility and a host of new challenges. Kufa was established as a garrison city strategically located on the banks of the Euphrates. It quickly became a center of political, military, and economic activity. The city attracted Arab settlers, soldiers, and their families, as well as local Persians and other groups. The population was diverse, and the task of governing such a community required wisdom, patience, and a deep understanding of human nature. Saad approached his new role with the same sense of duty and justice that had guided him on the battlefield. He understood that the stability of the region depended on fair treatment for all, regardless of background or faith. One of his first priorities was to establish a system of administration that could manage the needs of the growing population. He appointed officials to oversee taxation, law enforcement, and public works. Saad insisted on honesty and accountability, removing corrupt or incompetent officials and replacing them with those who had proven their integrity. Reforms were at the heart of Saad's governance. He introduced new systems for collecting taxes, ensuring that the burden was shared fairly and that the revenue was used for the benefit of the community. He invested in infrastructure, building roads, bridges, and canals to support trade and agriculture. Saad also encouraged the development of markets and the growth of commerce, recognizing that economic prosperity was essential for long-term stability. One of the most significant challenges Saad faced was balancing the interests of the Arab settlers and the local Persian population. The Arabs, many of whom were veterans of the recent campaigns, expected to be rewarded for their service. They were given land and privileges, but this sometimes led to tension with the Persians, who feared displacement and loss of status. Saad worked to address these concerns, promoting policies that encouraged cooperation and mutual respect. He sought to integrate the Persians into the new administration, valuing their experience and knowledge. Religious diversity was another important issue. The region was home to Muslims, Christians, Jews, Zoroastrians, and others. Saad upheld the principles of religious tolerance, allowing each community to practice its faith and manage its own affairs. He protected places of worship and ensured that religious minorities were not subjected to unfair treatment. This policy of tolerance helped to maintain peace and stability, even as the region underwent profound changes. Despite these efforts, resistance and unrest were never far away. Some Persians resented the loss of their independence and the imposition of new rulers. There were occasional uprisings and acts of sabotage, as well as ongoing tensions between different groups. Saad responded with a combination of firmness and compassion. He dealt swiftly with those who threatened public order, but he also sought to address the underlying causes of discontent. He listened to grievances, mediated disputes, and worked to build trust among the diverse communities under his rule. The emotional and ethical dilemmas of governance weighed heavily on Saad. He was acutely aware of the responsibility he carried, not just to the Caliph and the Muslim community, but to all the people of the region. Every decision had consequences, and the line between justice and expediency was not always clear. Saad struggled with the demands of leadership, the pressure to deliver results, and the need to remain true to his principles. Saad's reforms extended to the legal system. He established courts to resolve disputes and appointed judges known for their fairness and knowledge of Islamic law. He encouraged the use of consultation and consensus in decision-making, drawing on the traditions of both Arab and Persian governance. Saad believed that justice was the foundation of good government, and he worked tirelessly to ensure that it was upheld. The seeds of future conflict were present even in these early years. The rapid expansion of the Muslim state brought new challenges. Competition for resources, disputes over land and power, and the complexities of integrating diverse populations. Saad recognized that the unity of the community was fragile, and that the peace he had worked so hard to build could easily be disrupted. He urged his officials and the people of Kufa to remain vigilant, to avoid the mistakes of the past, and to work together for the common good. As Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas continued his work as governor, the daily realities of rule brought new tests of character and leadership. The city of Kufa grew rapidly, attracting people from across the region. With growth came new challenges: disputes over property, competition for influence, and the need to maintain order in a city that was both a military base and a melting pot of cultures. Saad was known for his accessibility and willingness to listen. He held regular gatherings where citizens could bring their concerns directly to him. This open-door policy helped to build trust, but it also exposed him to the full range of human problems: petty quarrels, serious grievances, and the ambitions of those who sought power for themselves. Saad tried to be fair in his judgments, relying on both Islamic principles and practical wisdom. One of the most difficult issues was the relationship between the Arab settlers and the local Persian population. While Saad worked to integrate Persians into the administration and protect their rights, tensions sometimes flared. Some Arabs viewed themselves as conquerors, entitled to special privileges, while some Persians resented the changes imposed by the new rulers. Saad encouraged dialogue and cooperation, but he also had to deal with incidents of discrimination and unrest. He reminded his officials that justice was for all, not just for the powerful or the victorious. Economic reforms were another focus of Saad's administration. He promoted agriculture by repairing and expanding irrigation systems, knowing that food security was essential for stability. He supported trade and crafts, encouraging both Arabs and Persians to contribute to the city's prosperity. Saad also ensured that the spoils of conquest were distributed fairly, with a portion set aside for the poor and for public works. These policies helped to create a sense of shared purpose, even as old rivalries lingered beneath the surface. The ethical dilemmas of rule were never far from Saad's mind. He was often caught between competing interests, between the demands of the Caliph in Medina, the expectations of his Arab soldiers, and the needs of the local population. Every decision required careful thought and sometimes painful compromise. Saad relied on prayer, consultation, and his own sense of justice to guide him through these challenges. Resistance to the new order persisted in various forms. Some Persians continued to hope for the restoration of their old empire, while others adapted to the new reality. There were occasional plots and uprisings, which Saad dealt with firmly, but not without regret. He understood that true peace could not be imposed by force alone. It required patience, understanding, and a willingness to address the root causes of discontent. Saad's leadership was also tested by internal divisions among the Muslims themselves. As the community grew, so did differences of opinion and competition for leadership. Saad worked to maintain unity, reminding his followers of the values that had brought them together. He encouraged consultation and discouraged factionalism. Knowing that division could undermine everything they had achieved, the emotional burden of leadership was heavy. Saad often reflected on the sacrifices that had been made to reach this point. The friends lost in battle, the hardships endured, and the hopes invested in the new society they were building. He felt the weight of responsibility, not just for his own generation, but for those who would come after. The decisions he made would shape the future of Kufa, the Persian territories, and the wider Muslim world. Despite the challenges, Saad's tenure as governor left a lasting mark. His reforms laid the foundations for a more just and stable society. His efforts to balance the interests of Arabs and Persians, to promote economic development, and to uphold the principles of justice and tolerance set a standard for those who followed. Yet, the seeds of future conflict remained. The rapid changes, brought by conquest and integration, created tensions that would resurface in later years. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas's experience as ruler of the New World was a lesson in the complexities of power. It was a story of ambition and idealism, of compromise and resilience, of the constant struggle to do what was right in a world full of competing interests. The emotional and ethical dilemmas he faced were the price of leadership, and his legacy was shaped as much by his struggles as by his successes. As Saad looked back on his years as governor, he could see both the progress that had been made and the challenges that still lay ahead. The work of building a just and inclusive society was never finished. The story of his rule in Kufa and the Persian territories was a chapter in a much larger history. A history shaped by the choices, sacrifices, and hopes of those who dared to dream of a better world. As the years passed, the challenges of governing Kufa and the Persian territories grew more complex for Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. The initial excitement of conquest and reform gave way to the realities of power, rivalries, suspicions, and the ever-present threat of political intrigue. The unity that had once defined the early Muslim community was now being tested by ambition, jealousy, and the struggle for influence. Saad's position as governor brought him into contact with many powerful figures, both in the new territories and in the heart of the caliphate. Some admired his leadership and integrity, while others saw him as an obstacle to their own ambitions. The rapid expansion of the Muslim state meant that new leaders were constantly emerging, each with their own followers and agendas. The competition for authority and recognition was fierce, and Saad found himself at the center of a web of alliances and rivalries. One of the main sources of tension was the relationship between the old companions of the Prophet and the newer generations of leaders. Saad, as one of the earliest and most respected companions, carried a certain prestige. But this also made him a target for those who resented his influence or questioned his decisions. Accusations of favoritism began to circulate, with some claiming that Saad gave special treatment to his own supporters or to certain tribes. Others accused him of being too lenient with the Persians or of failing to enforce the strictest standards of Islamic law. The spread of rumors and slander was a constant problem. In a society where news traveled quickly and loyalties could shift overnight, even the smallest accusation could have serious consequences. Saad was aware of the dangers, but he tried to remain focused on his duties. He continued to hold public gatherings, listen to grievances, and make decisions based on justice and consultation. Yet, the whispers of corruption and favoritism grew louder, fueled by those who sought to undermine his authority. The political climate in Medina also played a role. Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab was known for his strict oversight of governors and his insistence on accountability. He received regular reports from Kufa and other provinces, and he was quick to investigate any complaints. While Umar respected Saad's service and character, he was not immune to the pressures of public opinion and the need to maintain unity within the growing state at times. Umar sent envoys to Kufa to look into the accusations against Saad. These investigations were thorough, and Saad was given the opportunity to defend himself. In most cases, the charges were found to be baseless or exaggerated, and Saad was cleared of wrongdoing. However, the process itself was draining, and the constant scrutiny took a toll on Saad's morale. He began to feel the loneliness of leadership, the sense that no matter how hard he tried, he could never fully satisfy everyone or escape. The shadow of suspicion, the pain of betrayal, was especially acute when it came from those Saad had trusted. Some of his own officials and advisors, motivated by ambition or resentment, joined in the chorus of criticism. They spread stories of mismanagement, favoritism, or neglect, hoping to advance their own positions. Saad was deeply hurt by these betrayals, but he tried to respond with patience and dignity. He reminded himself that leadership was a test, and that the true measure of a man was how he responded to adversity. The rivalries among Muslim leaders were not limited to Kufa. Across the expanding caliphate, similar struggles were playing out. The old bonds of brotherhood forged in the early days of Islam were being strained by the pressures of power and the temptations of wealth. Saad watched with concern as divisions grew, knowing that the unity of the community was at risk. Despite the challenges, Saad continued to serve as governor, doing his best to uphold the principles of justice and fairness. He remained committed to the reforms he had introduced, and he worked to maintain order and stability in the region. But the atmosphere of suspicion and intrigue made his task increasingly difficult. Every decision was scrutinized, every action questioned, and every mistake magnified. The loneliness of leadership became a constant companion. Saad often found himself isolated, surrounded by people but unsure whom to trust. The weight of responsibility was heavy, and the knowledge that his every move was being watched added to the burden. He sought solace in prayer and reflection, drawing strength from his faith and his memories of the Prophet Muhammad. The pain of betrayal was not just personal. It was also a reminder of the fragility of power. Saad understood that leadership was never secure, that the favor of the people and the support of the caliph could vanish in an instant. He tried to prepare himself for whatever might come, knowing that his legacy would be shaped as much by his response to adversity as by his achievements in times of success. The pressure on Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas continued to mount as the years went. But the accusations and rumors did not fade away. Instead, they became more persistent and damaging. Some of the Arab settlers in Kufa, frustrated by their own struggles or jealous of others' success, blamed Saad for their problems. Others, seeking to gain favor with the central authorities, exaggerated minor grievances or invented stories of injustice. The atmosphere in Kufa grew tense, with factions forming and old rivalries resurfacing. Saad did his best to address the complaints and maintain order, but the situation was becoming increasingly difficult. The balance he had tried to maintain between Arab and Persian interests was fragile, and any sign of favoritism was seized upon by his critics. The diversity that had once been a strength of Kufa now became a source of division, as different groups competed for influence and resources. The political climate in Medina also shifted with the passing of Caliph Umar and the rise of Caliph Uthman ibn Affan. Uthman faced his own challenges, including growing unrest and accusations of nepotism. The central government became more sensitive to reports from the provinces, and the pressure on governors like Saad increased. Uthman, while respectful of Saad's service and reputation, was also under pressure to respond to the complaints coming from Kufa. Eventually, the accumulation of accusations and the growing unrest in Kufa led to Saad's removal from office. The decision was a painful one, both for Saad and for those who had supported his leadership. He was summoned to Medina to answer the charges against him. Though he was given the opportunity to defend himself and was ultimately cleared of any major wrongdoing, the experience left a deep mark. Saad had devoted years of his life to serving the community, only to find himself cast aside in the face of political pressure and public opinion. The loneliness of Saad became even more pronounced in the aftermath of his removal. Saad returned to a quieter life away from the center of power. He spent more time in reflection, prayer, and the company of his family. The pain of betrayal lingered, but Saad tried to find peace in the knowledge that he had done his best to serve with integrity and justice. He remained respected by many, but the scars of political intrigue and slander were slow to heal. The experience also changed Saad's perspective on power and leadership. He had seen firsthand how quickly fortunes could change, how loyalty could turn to suspicion, and how the pursuit of justice could be undermined by ambition and envy. Saad became more cautious in his dealings with others, more aware of the complexities of human nature, and more committed to the values that had guided him since his youth. The story of Saad's removal from power was not unique. Many of the early Muslim leaders faced similar challenges as the caliphate expanded and the demands of governance grew more complex. The ideals of brotherhood and unity that had defined the early years of Islam were increasingly tested by the realities of politics, wealth, and ambition. Saad's experience was a reminder that the price of power was often high, and that true leadership required not just strength and vision, but also patience, humility, and the ability to endure hardship. Despite the pain of betrayal and the loneliness of leadership, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas remained a figure of dignity and resilience. He continued to offer advice and support to those who sought his counsel, drawing on his vast experience and deep faith. He never lost sight of the values that had shaped his life: justice, compassion, and loyalty to the community. In the end, Saad's legacy was not defined by the slander of his enemies or the intrigues of politics, but by his steadfast commitment to the principles he believed in. The chapter of Saad's life as governor ended with disappointment and sorrow, but it also offered important lessons about the nature of power and the challenges of leadership. The shadows and slander that accompanied his rise and fall were part of a larger story, a story of ambition, rivalry, and the enduring struggle to balance justice with the demands of a changing world. Saad's journey through the storms of political intrigue left him wiser, more humble, and more determined than ever to hold fast to the ideals that had guided him from the beginning. After years of service, conflict, and leadership, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas entered the final chapter of his life. The man who had once led armies across deserts and rivers, who had governed new cities and faced the storms of political intrigue, now found himself in a quieter, more reflective phase. Retirement was not something Saad had planned for, but it was a reality he accepted with dignity. Saad withdrew from public life and settled in a modest home, away from the centers of power and the noise of politics. The years of command and responsibility had left their mark on him, both physically and emotionally. He was no longer the young archer of Badr or the general at Qadisiyyah. Age and experience had brought wisdom, but also a sense of weariness. The burdens of leadership, the memories of war, and the pain of betrayal lingered in his thoughts. In retirement, Saad devoted more time to his family. He found comfort in the company of his children and grandchildren, sharing stories of the past and lessons learned from a lifetime of service. The bonds of family became more important than ever, offering a sense of continuity and belonging. Yet, even in the warmth of home, Saad could not escape the memories of those he had lost along the way. Friends and companions who had fallen in battle, loved ones who had passed away. and relationships strained or broken by the demands of duty. Personal. Loss was a constant companion in Saad's later years. The world he had known was changing rapidly. Many of the Prophet's companions had passed away, and a new generation was rising, unfamiliar with the struggles and sacrifices of the early days. Saad sometimes felt like a relic of a bygone era, respected but no longer central to the unfolding story of the Muslim community. This sense of isolation was both a source of sadness and a reminder of the passage of time. Despite these feelings, Saad remained deeply connected to his faith. Prayer, reflection, and the recitation of the Quran became central to his daily life. He found solace in the teachings of Islam, drawing strength from the same values that had guided him through war and peace. Saad often reflected on the meaning of faith, not just as a set of beliefs, but as a way of life that demanded patience, humility, and compassion. He remembered the Prophet's example, the lessons of brotherhood and justice, and the importance of serving others. The memories of war were never far from Saad's mind. He recalled the battles he had fought, the strategies he had devised, and the moments of fear and courage that had defined his career. The faces of fallen comrades appeared in his thoughts, and he mourned the cost of victory. Saad understood that war was sometimes necessary, but he also recognized its terrible price. The emotional scars of conflict were deep, and he carried them with him to the end of his days. Saad's reflections on leadership were shaped by both pride and regret. He took satisfaction in the achievements of his life, the victories won, the reforms introduced, the communities built, but he also acknowledged his mistakes, the times when he had failed to live up to his own standards, or when circumstances had forced him to make painful choices. The loneliness of command, the burden of responsibility, and the pain of betrayal were all part of the legacy he carried in his final years. Saad became a source of wisdom and guidance for those who sought him out. Younger men and women came to him for advice, eager to learn from his experience. Saad shared his insights freely, emphasizing the importance of justice, humility, and service to others. He warned against the dangers of pride, ambition, and division, urging the next generation to remember the values that had built the Muslim community. The emotional cost of a life spent in service and conflict was real. Saad sometimes wondered whether the sacrifices had been worth it, whether the world he had helped to shape was truly better for his efforts. He found comfort in the belief that every act of justice, every moment of compassion, and every effort to serve others had value, even if the results were not always as he had hoped. As the days passed, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas spent more time in quiet contemplation. The world outside his home continued to change, with new leaders rising and old conflicts resurfacing. Saad watched these developments with a mixture of concern and acceptance. He knew that history moved in cycles, and that every generation faced its own tests and challenges. He hoped that the lessons of his life, of faith, courage, and justice, would not be forgotten. Saad's health began to decline as he grew older. The physical toll of years spent in battle and administration became more apparent. He suffered from ailments that limited his mobility, and he relied increasingly on the care and support of his family. Despite these difficulties, Saad remained mentally sharp and spiritually strong. He continued to pray, to recite the Quran, and to reflect on the meaning of his journey. In his conversations with family and visitors, Saad often spoke about the importance of intention. He believed that the value of a person's actions lay not just in their outcomes, but in the sincerity and purpose behind them. Saad encouraged others to act with honesty, to seek knowledge, and to serve their communities with humility. He reminded them that true greatness was found not in power or wealth, but in the ability to uplift others and to remain steadfast in the face of diversity. The legacy of Saad's life was a subject of reflection for him in his final years. He knew that his name would be remembered in the annals of history as a companion of the Prophet, a general, a governor, and a leader. But Saad was less concerned with fame than with the impact he had made on the lives of those around him. He took pride in the reforms he had introduced, the justice he had tried to uphold, and the compassion he had shown to friend and stranger alike. Saad also reflected on the cost of leadership. He understood that every position of authority came with its own burdens. Difficult decisions, criticism, and the risk of misunderstanding or betrayal. He accepted these as part of the price of service, but he also recognized the importance of forgiveness, both for others and for himself. Saad tried to let go of old grievances, to make peace with his past, and to focus on the good he had been able to do. The emotional journey of Saad's life was marked by moments of joy and sorrow, triumph and disappointment. He celebrated the successes of his children and grandchildren, finding hope in their achievements and character. He mourned the loss of old friends and the passing of an era. But he remained grateful for the opportunities he had been given and the lessons he had learned. As his life drew to a close, Saad found comfort in his faith and in the love of his family. He faced death with the same courage and dignity that had defined his life. Those who were with him in his final days remembered his calm, his wisdom, his cast, and his unwavering trust in God. Saad's passing was mourned by many, but his legacy lived on in the stories told by those who had known him and in the values he had embodied. The story of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas' final years is a testament to the enduring strength of character, the importance of reflection, and the power of faith to sustain a person through all of life's trials. His journey from the deserts of Arabia to the halls of power, and finally to a place of quiet wisdom, offers lessons for all who seek to live with purpose and integrity. The emotional cost of a life spent in service and conflict was great, but so too was the reward, a legacy of justice, compassion, and unwavering faith. The story of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas did not end with his death. His life, actions, and choices continued to echo through the centuries, shaping the way he was remembered and the world he helped to create. For some, Saad is a hero, a man of faith, courage, and vision who played a crucial role in the rise of Islam and the transformation of the Middle East. For others, he is a conqueror, a symbol of the sweeping changes that forever altered the lands and peoples of Persia. And for some, his legacy is more complicated, marked by controversy, difficult decisions, and the inevitable ambiguities of history. Saad's victories in Persia were among the most significant achievements of the early Muslim state. The defeat of the Sassanid Empire at Qadisiyyah and the capture of Ctesiphon opened the door for the spread of Islam into new territories. These events changed the course of history, ending centuries of Persian imperial rule and bringing new ideas, laws, and cultures to the region. The impact of these conquests was profound, touching every aspect of life in Persia and beyond. For the Muslim community, Saad's leadership was a source of pride and inspiration. He was remembered as one of the Prophet Muhammad's closest companions, a man who had stood firm in the face of adversity and who had led his people to victory against overwhelming odds. His reputation for justice, humility, and compassion set a standard for future generations. Saad's reforms in governance, his efforts to balance the interests of Arabs and Persians, and his commitment to religious tolerance were seen as examples of good leadership. Yet, Saad's legacy was not without controversy. The rapid expansion of the Muslim state brought both opportunity and conflict. The integration of diverse peoples and cultures was a complex process, and not everyone welcomed the changes. Some Persians saw Saad and the Arab conquerors as foreign rulers who disrupted their way of life and imposed new laws and customs. The memory of lost independence, the displacement of old elites, and the challenges of adapting to a new order left lasting scars. Historians and scholars have debated Saad's role in these events. Some emphasize his achievements as a military leader and administrator, highlighting the stability and prosperity that followed the conquests. Others focus on the costs of war, the suffering of the defeated, and the difficulties of building a just society in the aftermath of conflict. The truth, as always, is complex. Saad was both a product of his time and a shaper of history, a man who made difficult choices in a world full of uncertainty. The impact of Saad's victories extended far beyond Persia. The fall of the Sassanid Empire shifted the balance of power in the region, paving the way for the rise of new centers of learning, trade, and culture. The blending of Arab and Persian traditions created a unique civilization that would influence the world for centuries. The spread of Islam brought new ideas about law, governance, and society, transforming the lives of millions. Saad's legacy also raises important questions about the nature of history and the people who shape it. Was he a hero or a conqueror, a visionary leader or a controversial figure? The answer depends on perspective, on the values and experiences of those who remember him. For some, Saad's life is a story of faith and perseverance, a testament to the power of conviction and the importance of justice. For others, it is a reminder of the costs of conquest, the pain of loss, and the challenges of building a new world. The complexity of Saad's legacy is a reflection of the complexity of history itself. The men and women who shape the world are rarely simple or one-dimensional. Their actions have consequences, both intended and unintended. Their choices are shaped by the circumstances of their time, by the pressures of leadership, and by the hopes and fears of those they lead. Saad's story is a reminder that history is not just a record of events, but a tapestry of human experience, of ambition and sacrifice, of triumph and tragedy, of dreams and disappointments. In the centuries since Saad's time, his name has been remembered in many ways. Mosques, cities, and streets bear his name. Stories of his courage and wisdom are told in homes and schools. Scholars study his life, seeking to understand the lessons of his leadership and the impact of his decisions. Yet, the debates about his legacy continued, reflecting the ongoing struggle to make sense of the past and to find meaning in the stories of those who came before. The echoes of Saad's conquests can still be felt today. The lands he helped to bring into the fold of Islam remain centers of culture, learning, and faith. The challenges he faced of governance, justice, and unity are still relevant in a world that continues to grapple with the complexities of diversity and change. Saad's life offers both inspiration and caution, a reminder that the work of building a just and compassionate society is never finished. As we reflect on the legacy of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, we're reminded of the power of individuals to shape history for better or for worse. His story is a testament to the enduring impact of faith, the challenges of leadership, and the complexity of human experience. In the end, Saad's life invites us to look beyond simple labels and to appreciate the richness and depth of the past, a past that continues to shape our world in ways both seen and unseen. The debate over Saad's legacy is not limited to historians and scholars. In popular memory, his story is retold in different ways across cultures and generations. In some places, he is celebrated as a founding figure, a symbol of the courage and vision that helped build a new civilization. In others, his name is associated with the pain of conquest and the loss of an ancient way of life. These differing perspectives are a reminder that history is always viewed through the lens of those who inherit its consequences. Saad's own reflections in his final years suggest that he was aware of the complexity of his legacy. He did not see himself as a flawless hero, nor did he deny the hardships and mistakes that came with leadership. Instead, he accepted that every life, especially one lived in the public eye, would be judged in many ways. He encouraged those around him to seek justice, to forgive, and to remember that the ultimate judge of all actions is God. The transformation of Persia under Saad's leadership was not just political or military. It was also cultural and spiritual. The introduction of new laws, the spread of the Arabic language, and the gradual adoption of Islamic practices changed the fabric of society. Yet, Persian culture also influenced the conquerors. The arts, sciences, and administrative traditions of Persia enriched the Islamic world, creating a legacy of exchange and adaptation. Saad's role in this process was both as a leader and as a bridge between worlds. The impact of Saad's victories also extended to the broader Islamic world. The resources and knowledge gained from Persia helped fuel the golden age of Islamic civilization. Cities like Baghdad, which would later rise near the ruins of Ctesiphon, became centers of learning and innovation. The blending of Persian and Arab traditions produced advances in philosophy, medicine, mathematics, and literature. Saad's conquests, therefore, were not just about territory. They were about opening doors to new possibilities and ideas. Yet, the legacy of conquest is always double-edged. The spread of Islam brought unity and new opportunities to many, but it also brought disruption and loss to others. The old Persian nobility was displaced, and many communities had to adapt to new rulers and new laws. The process of integration was not always smooth, and there were periods of resistance, negotiation, and compromise. Saad's efforts to govern with justice and tolerance set an example. But the challenges of empire were immense. In the centuries that followed, Saad's name continued to inspire both admiration and debate. Poets and storytellers celebrated his victories, while critics pointed to the costs of war and the difficulties of rule. His life became a symbol of the possibilities and perils of leadership, a reminder that those who shape history must also bear its burdens. The story of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas is also a meditation on the nature of power. He rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most influential figures of his time. He experienced the highs of victory and the lows of political intrigue and betrayal. Through it all, he tried to remain true to his values, even when the world around him was changing in ways he could not control. Expertise to his journey is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring importance of faith, justice, and humility. As we look back on Saad's life, we are reminded that history is not just a series of events, but a tapestry woven from the choices, dreams, and struggles of countless individuals. The men and women who shape the world are never perfect, and their legacies are always subject to interpretation. Saad's story invites us to reflect on our own values, to seek understanding across differences, and to recognize the complexity of the past. In the end, the echoes of Saad's conquests are still felt today. The lands he helped to bring into the Islamic world remain vibrant centers of culture and faith. The questions he faced about justice, leadership, and the meaning of legacy are as relevant now as they were in his own time. Ibn Abi Waqqas. Life is a reminder that the work of building a better world is never finished, and that the true measure of greatness lies not in conquest alone, but in the ability to inspire, to serve, and to leave behind a legacy of hope and possibility.